A flying fortress is the most powerful air weapon in the world today.
The Foo Fighters might have been the first encounter between UAPs and U.S. military planes, but no film footage of them exists. In fact, the first moving images of UFOs we could find were shot a few years later. The military had an explanation, but is that the whole story? Check this out.
August 15th, 1950, Great Falls, Montana. Baseball coach Nick Mariana is out scouting a new ball field accompanied by his secretary. He's brought along a 16mm film camera, but what catches his eye isn't the field. It's in the sky above it. We zoom in and focus on what Mariana sees. The 11-second clip captures two silver objects appearing to fly in tandem across the Montana sky.
This video is particularly interesting to me, mainly because this was before satellites crowded our sky. So seeing some light traveling across the sky was a very unusual event.
Take a closer look. Are these illuminated orbs tic-tacs? Compare them to the Nimitz footage on the right. We know they're not an artifact in the film or a flaw in the camera lens because they move behind this water tower here.
What we're looking at here potentially could be the very first UFO video ever captured.
Mariana's incident occurred during the UFO craze of the late 40s and early 50s. It began when Kenneth Arnold first reported seeing strange objects fly into Mount Rainier in 1947, coining the term flying saucer. And it hit a fever pitch after the Roswell incident in New Mexico that same year, which has since become a touchstone of pop culture. But what's striking here is that Mariana later described the objects as silver spinning discs, much like what may have crashed in the New Mexico desert, depending on who you ask about Roswell.
The initial report was that the military had found a flying disc, so it was picked up by newspapers across the country. Then, pretty much immediately, they retracted their story and said it was a weather balloon. And the change in the story led some people to think that there was a little something fishy going on.
Many believe the Roswell incident is a cover-up. With today's technology, it's quite easy to insert UFOs into digital video. Like this one over Miami we judged to be a fake last year.
What the is that? Wait, bye.
Then he instantly says, okay, bye, and then he pans away from it. It's very strange. I would expect that an operator doesn't simply move away after they see something like that. They stay focused on it.
This video was clearly faked.
But back in 1950, Nick Mariana didn't have the computer technology needed to doctor a video. That makes a big difference.
This 11-second film was captured on 16mm film, which makes it almost impossible to doctor. Whatever we're seeing here was captured in camera in the moment.
So we can rule out that this was a hoax. But the Air Force told Mariana that what he'd recorded was two F-94 fighter jets flying near Great Falls at the time. Maybe that's the case, and maybe not.
There's controversy because the jets were known to be in a very different area than here.
The explanation that this was, what appears to be the reflection off of the F-94 jets. One problem with that is anybody who's looked up in the sky and seen the sun reflecting off of a plane recognizes that as the plane's in motion, where the sun is relative to that, that's going to change that reflection a little bit. It can cause flickering, it can cause it to dim.
For physics buffs, this phenomenon is called the law of reflection. When a ray of light strikes a silvery or mirrored surface, it's reflected away from the surface at the same angle. So if you move that mirrored surface, the reflection shifts with it.
And suddenly you can clearly see an aircraft. But in this instance, we see a consistent light source. That would be more consistent with something that is actually, displaying light itself rather than reflecting light from an exterior source. It certainly doesn't appear to be F-94 jets.
So McMillan is confident the craft are emitting light, not reflecting it. But maybe there is some other explanation. In the past, we've seen that some kinds of birds can be mistaken for UFOs. Is that the case here?
I don't believe that is in the cards here because the tower is a couple hundred feet or more from Nick Mariana, and then beyond that are these objects. They're moving so fast that they'd have to be very, very, very fast birds.
In a dive, Falcons can reach speeds of over 200 miles per hour, but these objects are moving horizontally, and the fastest birds, like ducks, are closer to the 70-mile-an-hour range. Whatever Mariana filmed appears to be flying several times that speed.
So it just doesn't fit. If they were jets, it would be relatively simple to show that they were jets, and no one would hide the fact. So how come we don't know the answer?
So our verdict on the Mariana film. There's room for debate here, but the Air Force's explanation isn't doing it for us. So we're gonna call this a genuine UFO. One thing's for sure, we've come a long way since 1950, both in the technology we use to document UFOs and also our government's attitude about reporting them, even if it can't say what they are. We want to return to the encounters of July 2019. Several naval warships, including the USS Omaha, are conducting exercises off the coast of California. For days, they report being tailed by drone-like objects at night. And now, at 11 p.m. on July 15th, the Omaha is about to record some of the most compelling video of the modern UFO era.
Took off, booking it.
This leaked footage, obtained by filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, comes from inside the ship's Combat Information Center. It shows a sphere-like object flying near the ship in windy and choppy conditions.
Break Omaha, pick me kid, Rafael Peralta, passive ability to launch helo ASAP.
Whoa, it's getting close.
This is happening the same month the Green Pyramid footage was shot on board the USS Russell, another ship participating in these exercises. The Omaha is concerned enough to prepare to launch a helicopter when the object appears to dive into the ocean.
Whoa, splashed. Mark bearing and range.
Unconfirmed reports say the Omaha and a nearby submarine proceeded to search the water for signs of the object, but found nothing. The crucial element in this video is the plunging into the ocean, classifying this as a so-called transmedium UFO, an object that appears to possess amphibious capabilities. In other words, a USO, an unidentified submerged object.
This is a belief based on data, based on what other navies, including our own, have seen in the ocean. So it's possible that these unknown objects are playing cat and mouse with our own submarines.
USOs have been documented by the U.S. Navy for decades, including the famous Aguadilla incident off the coast of Puerto Rico in 2013. In that case, a DEA plane recorded this footage of an object circling the airport, then heading out to sea and entering the water at high speed, then re-emerging. One theory posits that ETs are either exploring the Earth's oceans as well as its skies, or that perhaps they have underwater bases we're unaware of.
Maybe alien life forms could have made it to us, and if they got here, where would they go? They know we're intelligent. So they would go where we are not. And where we are not is in the deep ocean.
Could it be a parachute flare? Unlikely, as it's moving across the water horizontally. A weather balloon. No material was recovered in a search of the area, and a balloon would not lose its infrared heat signature that fast upon hitting the water.
We can see it maneuver from right to left. We can see it ascend abruptly. You know, all of that is pretty inconsistent with any types of balloons, whether it's even an atmospheric testing balloon, that type of thing. You know, if it's moving lighter than air, it's going to be carried by wind currents, but it's not going to have a propulsion system. There's not going to be a thrust that sends it into different directions.
You notice it moves across the water with some speed. A balloon wouldn't be moving across the water at high speed just to stop. So it's not a balloon, in my view.
Unlikely it's a plane. The object has no wings, and because it was captured on a thermal camera, we can see that its temperature is even on all surfaces. If it were a jet, it would appear much hotter at the rear exhaust nozzle. How about a drone, launched by an adversary trying to gather intel on our aerial defense capabilities?
It takes a large drone that's about the size of a plane to sustain flight time for hours. But these evidently were up in the air for hours, plaguing the ships. And the Navy says they still can't identify them.
If it was a drone, were they trying to tease the U.S. military? They wouldn't give away technology like that. They wouldn't let on that they had this technology. They haven't shot at it. They haven't done anything to it whatsoever. yet it's falling and eventually landing in the water.
But what about when it hits the water? Even if a drone split apart on impact, you'd still expect the pieces to show up in the thermal image. Instead, it just seems to disappear.
This object went into the water where any other type of aircraft, there should have been a crash, there should have been some debris. However, none was found.
So we've ruled out almost every possible earthly explanation. But we have to seriously consider that this object might have been a foreign military asset. On the other hand, how likely is it that the U.S. military would be unable to identify such objects no matter how sophisticated they might be? Like the government, we're calling this a genuine UFO. But the report's vagueness leaves the topic wide open for further debate. That's why the UFO community is now clamoring for further disclosure, especially about those other 141 incidents that haven't been made public. We are eager to see where we go next. But for now, it might be wise to consider that when you look up at the night sky, someone might be looking back. Last year, Congress held a formal public hearing on unidentified aerial phenomena for the first time in 50 years. The Pentagon disclosed to lawmakers that it has cataloged more than 400 reports of UAPs, 11 of which were near misses with aircraft. They also released this next video, which made headlines across the world.
It's 2021, and a Navy pilot is flying his F-18 fighter jet off the East Coast when reports come in of a strange object in his airspace. As the pilot scans the skies, he also takes out his cell phone, and that's when he captures this. Watch closely. Did you catch that? It's not something you'd have seen in Top Gun. Let's zoom in. For a split second, what appears to be an unknown spherical metallic object hurtles past the plane. According to journalist Amy Tidal, when this video was shown to Congress, the mysterious craft shook the halls of Capitol Hill.
The U.S. government could not say for certain what is in this video, but it is something physically going by the window.
Mr. Bragg, can you describe what we're looking at? What are we observing?
It's reflective in this video, somewhat reflective, and it quickly passes by the cockpit of the aircraft.
It is significant that the government is saying that they are in fact real and that they are in fact unexplained.
But what makes this such a mystery? Tidal explains it's that this craft has hallmarks of what UFO investigators call the 5 observables.
They typically demonstrate anti-gravity lift, they can accelerate very quickly, and they can move at hypersonic speeds without any kind of exhaust. They're very hard to see or use some kind of cloaking. They can move from water to air seamlessly.
This object appears to be flying at Mach speeds without any visible means of propulsion. The question for Congress and the Pentagon, why do the vast majority of these unidentified objects seem to target military aircraft?
A lot of UAP sightings come from aircraft. So there are some who believe that this alien technology is surveilling humans and is targeting aircraft as a means to explore and study the technology here on Earth.
We go first to aviation expert Tim McMillan. Are we simply seeing another aircraft or even a drone?
We definitely do not see the wings or any of the control surfaces that you should see in a fixed-wing drone or airplane. And then in terms of a rotary wing drone or helicopter, we don't see the rotors. Cubes and balls don't fly. So to me, the only type of objects that are airborne that really could match that description would be balloons.
So could this be a balloon? The Pentagon claimed the wreckage found at Roswell in 1947 was part of a military operation using high-altitude balloons. Believers question that explanation, but Rich Hoffman of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies says there is at least one known balloon designed to function miles above the Earth.
Google had what they call the Google Loon balloon. They were testing balloons to be able to provide internet to people around the world.
The typical fighter jet flies about 50,000 feet above sea level. The Google Loon balloon is designed for altitudes around 60 to 75,000 feet. But Hoffman notes 2 issues. This object doesn't have the shape and size of a Google balloon, and that program ended in January 2021 before this footage was likely taken. So if it's not a plane or a balloon, does this mean we've got eyes on top secret technology?
That would be extremely unlikely because this comes from the Office of Naval Intelligence, and you wouldn't publicize your top secret technology.
So if it's not ours, is it coming from somewhere further away, like outer space?
It doesn't match our flight physics. My opinion, anything is on the table till it's not. Could be an alien, who knows? But it's definitely unknown, and so it's really intriguing.
Our verdict? Genuine UFO. Our experts agree with naval intelligence. They also have no idea what they're looking at. The good news? The Pentagon is now taking this seriously enough that it's established a special task force to detect, identify, and attribute objects of interest. We're looking forward to their next report. Statistics show that up to 80% of all aviation accidents can be attributed to human error. However, rarely are they caused by planes colliding with other jets. So what are the chances that one might bump into an interstellar craft?
November 2021, Henderson, Nevada. It's about 4 a.m., and practically everyone is asleep except for Jason Sir-Asim, who is squeezing in one last hour of stargazing from his backyard. When he suddenly sees this. Two groups of lights are seen in the sky, appearing to narrowly miss colliding with each other by mere seconds. Look closely. On the right is clearly a jetliner. But what is that strange T-shaped formation of objects on the left? Jason doesn't have an answer and can't believe what he's seeing. But as shocking as this near miss seems, author and blogger Amy Teitel says it may be part of a larger pattern.
In 2021, an American Airlines pilot made headlines when he radioed the ground saying that he saw a UFO out of his windshield somewhere over New Mexico.
We just had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object moving really fast that went right over the top of us.
But if Jason's video is a UFO attempting to get near or closely examine a jet, the question for investigators is why?
UFologists don't believe that there's any firm theory on why UFOs would target commercial airliners. But many UFO sightings seem to be related to military jets or some kind of military technology. One of the earliest comes from 1967. American intelligence was listening in on communications from Cuba, where the pilot said at 33,000 feet that he saw a bright glowing disc out of his window.
Rich Hoffman of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies has been studying UFOs for decades. Does he think this object is from another world?
It doesn't typically match what we think of as a UFO. It doesn't make any apparent strange motions like advanced speed or instantaneous taking off.
That doesn't mean it's not a UFO, but that if it is, it's not acting like others. Still, could they just be two planes passing? Passenger jets are mandated to have lights all over the craft, including ones for taxiing, landing, wingtips, and blinking anti-collision lights. But Hoffman's not seeing that here.
It's a close match for an aircraft going across, but the lighting pattern on it and the fact that it doesn't have the blinking lights aircraft are supposed to have, the object itself stumped me. I've never seen anything quite like it. In my investigations, we rarely, if ever, get something that looks like a T.
Next, we turn to aviation expert Tim McMillan. If it's not a plane, could it be a satellite? In 2019, SpaceX launched a global network of satellites providing internet coverage from space called Starlink. They operate in groups called constellations, and today there are over 2,000 in orbit.
Starlink is a long string of lights in the night sky. Starlink satellites are connected together, but we wouldn't be seeing a T formation.
Does the location play into the mystery? Jason shot this footage less than 100 miles from the notorious Area 51.
So now we are in the general area that secret aircraft do fly. But at the same time, it doesn't match up with what we should be seeing if it was a fixed-wing aircraft, a drone, or a rotary wing helicopter. And why would you do a really irregular light pattern on your top secret aircraft?
Although not convinced it's any airplane, McMillan does see a clue which leads him to a theory that may explain why there appears to be a near collision.
When you're looking at the aircraft that passes by it,
we see the contrail from it. So we can see that this aircraft is moving within the atmosphere, but we're not seeing the same atmospheric effects with our T object. That means that the object in our T formation is higher than whatever is the aircraft flying below it.
McMillan's theory is that this object is miles up in space, but not a satellite.
If I had to give my most likely explanation, is possibly the International Space Station. It's roughly 250 miles above the Earth's surface. You've got the big panels that are extended out. And so the lights that we are seeing, the sun could be reflecting on that portion as it passes over.
This one has us stumped. So we did some digging, and based on tracking data, it appears the ISS wasn't passing over Nevada at the time the video was shot. Our verdict, we're gonna go with genuine UFO. We just can't identify it. And for sure, Jason's experience proves one thing. If you keep looking up, there's no telling what you'll find.